Welcome and welcome back to Obscure Fives. Today, we will be looking into 5 mysteries revolving around national parks and mountain ranges. I urge you to keep an open mind while watching this video, for some of these are pretty obscure. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's dive straight in. Kenny Veach and the M Cave. Kenny Veach, aged 47, was an experienced solo hiker who spent a fair amount of his time exploring the Mojave and Great Basin deserts in Nevada and California. Most of his trips he went alone, camping out for several days with minimal supplies, and occasionally he was accompanied by his girlfriend, Sharon. On one particular solo hike in the Sheep Mountain Range, Kenny came across a cave that he described to be in the shape of an M. This cave was giving off an intense energy, and as he approached the cave, his body began to vibrate. This was the only cave that Kenny had ever feared. So he decided he wouldn't go into the cave on that day, but that he would come back and be more prepared. Then, on October 17th, 2014, Kenny posted a video about him searching for the M Cave. In this expedition, he brought a gun, for he was determined to find out what was so strange about this mysterious cave lost in the mountain range, although he never found it. Finally, on November 10th, 2014, he set out into the southern Mojave more determined than ever on a 40-mile journey in search of the mysterious cave, stating that if he could not find it, he would just continue hiking over mountain after mountain to the north of the canyon until he did. But Kenny never returned. Many fellow hikers in the US deserts would call his trips reckless, since he often went out into the wilderness without the necessary equipment. Red Rock Search and Rescue found Kenny's cell phone near an abandoned mine shaft, but they could not find any further trails, and they did not suspect that he had fallen into the shaft. Now this is strange, for Sharon did not believe his cell phone had simply fallen out of his pocket. She believed that he had left his phone in this spot as either a clue or a way to not be tracked by the GPS. In fact, she commented on Kenny's last YouTube video, stating that she believed Kenny committed suicide after an ongoing battle with depression, a recent business failure, and him stating that if he were to commit suicide, no one would find him. Interestingly enough, a YouTuber by the name of Liberation claims to have found the M Cave, and it seems to have been covered up, sealed away almost. In fact, this is the same area Kenny was recording his last video, and as he's stating that the cave looks like the letter M and is level with the ground in an area like this, he doesn't seem to recognize the alleged M Cave right before his eyes. Did you see it? Take a look at this side-by-side picture. What do you guys think? I'll link Liberation's video in the description below. There are various conspiracy theories on Kenny Veach's disappearance, varying from suicide, to being a witness of a drug deal gone wrong, to possibly finding the M Cave and the beings that inhabit it. So, did Kenny die from exposure of the desert elements? Did the advanced hiker intend on never returning? Or did he come across something that he wasn't meant to find? What do you guys think? Yosemite National Park and the Severed Deer Heads. In 1998, a ranger for the Backcountry Division in Yosemite Park was patrolling the area on foot when in the middle of a trail he found a freshly severed deer head. Hunting was not legal during that time of year, but oddly enough, the head was cut clean, its eyes were missing, and there was no body or blood to be found. The ranger surveyed the area, buried the head, and continued on his rounds. Then about a half a mile later, he stumbled across a second deer head in the middle of the trail. Now, the ranger was worried, for he was 30 miles away from his vehicle and knew that potentially whoever or whatever had done this could be watching him. Not only this, but since there was no blood and no body anywhere nearby, this meant that whoever killed this deer had done it at a different location, taken the head and specifically placed it on the footpath. but he checked the surrounding area, found nothing, and buried the head. As he went to finish his patrol, he discovered a third deer head. This one was much older and had decomposed further than the others, but still, this was terrifying. However, it was not enough of an emergency to request help, so he walked until the sun set, found a spot beneath a tree, and waited until dawn. Once he finished his patrol, he reported the mysterious trail of deer heads, but who put them there remains a mystery. Could this have been some sort of alien mutilation? Or a strange prank? Or was someone using these heads as a weird form of bait? I'll link the original full-length post below. It's definitely worth the read. Yellowstone National Park, Lake Whispers. For more than a century, Yellowstone Lake has been known for producing a strange noise, often referred to as music, a hum, or even a whisper, but an explanation for this mysterious noise has never been found. Now, let's take a listen to the strange occurrence and let me know what you guys think. The full version can be found on the National Park Service's website. I'll leave a link in the description below. In 1872, Yellowstone was established as the world's first national park. Then in 1895, Captain Hiram Martin Chittenden of the Army Corps of Engineers wrote the first official account of the Yellowstone Lake hum in his historical and descriptive Journal of the Park. Chittenden wrote that a most singular and interesting acoustic phenomenon of this region, although rarely noticed by tourists, is the occurrence of strange and indefinable overheard sounds. They have long been noted by explorers, but only in the vicinity of Shoshone and Yellowstone lakes. They seem to occur in the morning and to last only a moment. They have an apparent motion through the air, the general direction noted by riders being from north to south. For decades, experts have struggled to explain these bizarre acoustics. A 1930 issue of Popular Science magazine cited mild earthquakes, their sounds possibly magnified in underground caverns, and a temperature inversion above the lake affecting how the air conducts sound. Ranger naturalist Neil Miner suggested in a 1937 Park publication that horizontally moving whirlpools of air were to blame, formed by air flowing down from nearby high peaks. Another theory is that the ice freezes and expands. The moving water underneath the ice creates cracks that travel, and thus resulting in these eerie sounds. In my opinion, all of these theories are very possible. But it's interesting to note that this sound has been documented at various times of the year, not only through winter. However, reports of this noise have declined since the 60s. And to this day, none of these hypotheses fully satisfy experts, leaving the Yellowstone Lake Whisper phenomena officially unexplained. Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta, otherwise known as the White Mountain, is a potentially active volcano at the southern end of the Cascade Range in Siskiyou County, California. The mountain and surrounding area, otherwise known as the Shasta Trinity National Forest, has become well known as a hub for paranormal activity. Perhaps the most well-known mystery is that of the lost land, Lemuria. Ancient Native American legends speak of a fallen race of prehistoric giants who once inhabited the Pacific coast of North America, and according to legend, their civilization was destroyed in a great flood. Artifacts found from the surrounding area conservatively suggest at least 11,000 years of human habitation, designating this region as one of the longest occupied areas of North America. In 1903, a British prospector named J.C. Brown was hired by the Lord Cowdrey Mining Company of England to prospect for gold. According to legend, during Brown's explorations of the wilderness, he claimed to come across a rock fall at the base of a cliff. He suspected that something may be buried underneath it and set about clearing away the rubble. Here, he discovered a cave that was 11 miles deep. On his second expedition, he descended into the cave. About 3 miles in, Brown claimed to have found golden tablets and plates, all neatly inscribed with strange hieroglyphics and writings that described an ancient culture. In another chamber, he claimed to have counted 27 giant skeletons laid out at angles to the walls, the smallest of which was 6 feet 6 inches, and the tallest more than 10 feet in height. In another chamber lay the bodies of a man and a woman, dressed in royal robes, apparently embalmed and mummified by some secret process. Brown believed them to be the king and queen of a lost race of prehistoric giants, but he kept these findings to himself and grew increasingly paranoid about his discoveries. 30 years later, when J.C. Brown was about 79 years old, he visited the editor of the Stockton, California newspaper and told them his story. They then referred him to a man named John C. Root, who took lead in this story. Over the course of 6 weeks, various meetings took place between Root, Brown, and the curator for the Stockton Museum. Root proceeded to gather an exploration team in Stockton, California of about 80 people to accompany Brown on the expedition to the legendary cave. Prior to leaving, Brown told the group that there were 2 caves. The first one contained the mummified king and queen of the fallen race of Lemurians, and what was found in the first cave was meant to be donated to the local museums, while what was collected in the second cave would be left to the group. However, in May of 1934, on the day the expedition was meant to be set out, J.C. Brown did not show up. In fact, he went missing and he was never seen again. So, did J.C. Brown find evidence of a lost prehistoric human race? Was someone sent to ensure this expedition wasn't followed through? Or is this simply an urban legend? What do you guys think? The Dyatlov Pass Incident. The Dyatlov Pass incident took place in the Siberian Ural Mountains, where a group of students were found frozen, underdressed, and deceased with inexplicable injuries. Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old radio engineering student at the Ural Polytechnical Institute, was the leader who assembled an experienced trekking group of 9 others, 8 men and 2 women, most of whom were also students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They began their 16-day itinerary aiming to cover 190 miles across the North Ural Mountains on the 27th of January 1959. Their plan had been to make contact by telegram from the final point at a village called Vizhay, but the telegram was never sent. On the 28th of January, member Yuri Yudin began experiencing joint pain and decided to turn back before it got worse, and the remaining 9 continued as planned. On February 1st, the hikers started to move through the mountain pass. It seems they planned to get over the pass and make camp for the next night on the opposite side, but because of worsening weather conditions, snowstorms and decreasing visibility, they lost their direction and deviated west, up towards the top of Kolatsiakul. When they realized their mistake, the group decided to stop and set up camp there on the slope of the mountain, rather than move nearly a mile downhill to a forested area that would have offered some shelter from the bad weather. Yudin stated that Dyatlov probably did not want to lose the altitude they had gained, or he decided to practice camping on the mountain slope. The group had established the camp on the slopes of Kolatsiakul, otherwise referred to as Death Mountain by the indigenous Mansi people. It was on the so-called Death Mountain where the group's final diary entry was made. 31st of January, 1959. Today, the weather is a bit worse. Wind, west, snow, probably from the pines because the sky is perfectly clear. Started relatively early, around 10 a.m. Took the same Mansi trail. Till now, we walk along a Mansi trail, which was crossed by a deer hunter not long ago. Yesterday, we apparently came across his resting stop. Deer didn't go much further. The hunter didn't follow the beaten path, and we are now in his steps. Today was surprisingly good accommodations for the tent. The air is warm and dry, despite the low temperature of -18 to -24 degrees Celsius. Walking is especially hard today. We can't see the trail and sometimes we have to grope our way through. All we can do is 1.5 kilometers per hour. We are forced to find new methods of clearing the path for the skis. The first member leaves his backpack on the ground and walks forward, then returns and rests for 10 to 15 minutes with the group. This way, we are continuously laying ski tracks. It is especially hard for the second to move along the new trail with full gear on the back. We gradually leave the Ospia Valley. The rise is continuous, but quite smooth. Fir trees are replaced by wispy birchwood. We came out of the tree line. Wind is western, warm, piercing. The speed of the wind is similar to the air draft created by a taking off airplane. Fern, open spaces. I can't even think about setting up a storage. It's close to 4. We have to start looking for a place to pitch the tent. We are going south in Ospia River Valley. This apparently is the place covered with the deepest snow. Wind is not strong. Snow cover is 1.22 meters. Tired and exhausted, we started the preparations for the night. There is not much firewood, frail damp firs. We started fire with logs, too tired to dig a fire pit. We are having dinner right in the tent. It's warm. It is hard to imagine such a comfort somewhere on the ridge, with the piercing howl of the wind, hundreds of kilometers away from human settlements. Dyatlov. When the telegram was not received, the relatives of the hikers demanded a search and rescue operation, which launched on February 20th, 1959. 6 days after the search was initiated, the students' tent was found. It had been sliced open from the inside, but still contained most of the group's belongings, which were left in an orderly manner. The following day, the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko were found nearly a mile away, laying by the remnants of a campfire, where they were both stripped of all clothing except for their underwear. In the days that followed, 3 more of the hikers were dug up, including Dyatlov, while the remaining 4 were only found in May once the snow had melted. Although the temperature was very low at around -25 to -30 degrees Celsius with a storm blowing, the dead were only partially dressed. Some of them had only one shoe, while others had no shoes or wore only socks. Meanwhile, some were found wrapped in snips of ripped clothes that seemed to have been cut from those who were already dead. After the group's bodies were discovered, an investigation by Soviet authorities determined that 6 had died from hypothermia, while the other 3 showed signs of physical trauma. One victim had a fractured skull, and 2 others had major chest fractures. All 4 bodies found at the bottom of the creek in a running stream of water had soft tissue damage to their head and face. For example, Dubinina was missing her tongue, her eyes, part of the lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of skull bone, while Zolotaryov had his eyeballs missing and Alexander Kolevatov was missing his eyebrows. The deterioration of the soft tissue likely happened post-mortem due to the location of the bodies. Numerous theories have been put forward to account for the unexplained deaths. However, the investigation concluded that a compelling force of nature had caused the deaths, and that the fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by another human, being that the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. But if this was the force of nature, why did the hikers flee the relative safety of the tent, and why were the causes of death so different? There is now a memorial where the students' bodies were found, listing all of their names along with the date they passed. The memorial states, "In the memory of those who have gone and will never return, we have named this mountain pass in their honor, the Dyatlov Pass." So, could this have really been a spontaneous act of nature? Or is there more to the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, as always, any story that ends with the loss of a life is tragic, and I hope that those who passed are resting in peace. As for the other mysteries featured in this video, do you think they are urban legends that have been twisted throughout the years? Or are there paranormal forces that dominate the mountain ranges and national parks of our world? Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, as well as follow me on my social medias for updates on my upcoming videos. Also, if you happen to have a strange, creepy, paranormal, or somewhat obscure video recording or story that you would like to share, feel free to email me at obscuretop5s@gmail.com. And I'll see you guys in the next one.